Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Joining us in our studio here in Abuja is Senator Sabi Abdullahi, who is the chairman of Senate Committee on Media and Publicity. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you, Magu.
Yeah, so, quickly, you have heard the lawyer. He has said, well, a calm reading of this judgment shows that there is really nothing to it. There is nothing enforceable from the judgment. Why is the Senate brandishing it so boldly?
Thank you very much. I think I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a citizen of this country, and I'm a lawmaker. One thing is very clear. Why we decided to brandish it, to use your word, is because there's a lot of concerns among Nigerians on this particular impasse. And, we are equally concerned because we know as responsible citizens and in our capacity as statesmen, we should be concerned about anything Nigerians have expressed as an issue. I think within the last 2-3 weeks, especially when the MPC could not meet, there were a lot of issues being raised, and we were inundated with all kinds of. So when this issue was brought up, we felt we should bring it up because perhaps the executive might be humbled by the, let me use the word, I'm not a lawyer, like I said, the expression which the lawyer talked about, the judgment made about this particular case. Because the way I want to look at it is, let's keep the messenger, which is the man who laid the complaint and went to court, that he is not capable of carrying the message. But let's look at the message from whatever perspective. That is the message the judge expressed his own legal opinions on, if you want to call it opinion, or he made a judgment on, even though, as he is trying to say, the man does not have the local standing. But the point to be made here is...
what he's trying to say is that it wasn't a judgment, that the judgment that was reached at the end of the day was that this case, Mr. Man, you do not have local standard.
I understand. What I'm saying is that judgment, that document, that is a judgment.
They called it an opinion.
Well, that is his own opinion too, because he's a lawyer. And for me, if I carry that document, it's a judgment. What the judgment says is what he's talking about. But that is a judgment, because the judgment is what the judge reads out completely. You can't take just one part and throw the other parts away. And whatever it is, like he has said, if I understood him very well, that the judge made those statements on the merit of the case, despite coming to the conclusion that the man who laid the complaint does not have the local standing to, institute that particular case. So, and that he is saying, in case if there is an appeal, and the appellate court says, no, the guy has local standing, go back and try the case. So in essence, he has already said what he will say, assuming the man has a local standing. I think that is the other point that I also understand. Assuming the man has local standing, or assuming the case was brought by somebody who has a local standing.
Which is based on an assumption. But let's go to the matter now.
That is the issue. Yeah.
Yes, let's go to the matter now.
Yeah.
What Mr. Oladjumo, I think as his name, had gone to court to determine was whether or not, in essence, was whether or not the Senate was a rubber stamp. And a lot of people, on face value of it, I mean, a lot of people...
whether we have the power.
Yes, to confirm.
Yes, to confirm, and whether we have any power not to, that our role in this case is just to, accept what Mr. President brought.
Exactly. So the judge said that the Senate is not a rubber stamp. You actually have the powers to reject and to confirm.
That is it.
Now, for a lot of people, the question now is whether when you reject or you confirm, the question is, can the person keep going on in the event that you reject? Can the person keep acting in acting capacity? For a number of people, this judgment doesn't address that.
Well, for me personally, I'm worried. I'm worried because, honestly, the situation is not good. First, if you look at even from a perspective of the public service, I was a service. And I knew in many instances Nigerians will look at the public service and say all the mess and all the problems governance is facing, they heap the blame on public servants.
No,
now, I'm coming.
Just a moment, just a quick differentiation. Yeah. Are you talking about public service, which will include all lawmakers as well, and everybody else who works in government, including the president? Are you referring strictly to the civil service?
Okay, let me say civil service so that I don't confuse. But I think it should be public service, because if you look at parastatals, when you are defining parastatals, for example, as in EFCC, when you want to define them, you have to define them from public service perspective. So let's make that distinction. And I think if you go into the Constitution, it's very clear. For example, those in the National Assembly management are all part of the larger public service.
Are their rules distinct from that of civil service?
Yeah, their own rules can be distinct.
So there's civil service rules and there's public service rules?
Yes, there's public. So what I'm trying to say here is that, you see, two things are clear here. You put somebody in acting capacity. The public service rule says you allow that person to act for 6 months. After that, you must take a decision. So what I'm saying is, from that perspective itself, a lot is not going on very well. Because I must say, beyond the EFCC, there are so many other parastatals that honestly, the people are acting for upward of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Nobody cares. And I think that is not good enough. That is on one perspective. But on the other perspective, our understanding of the EFCC Act is, the moment you present an acting person for confirmation, you've activated that particular provision, which means you have played your own part. For the action to be complete, the Senate must also complete its own part. So if the Senate does not complete its own part, then as far as we are concerned, that particular appointment does not stand.